Hello and welcome to the Sunbirdcrochet podcast. My name is Claudia and I'm coming to you from Germany. Today I have for you finished objects, 2 of them, then a couple of whips, works in progress, then I've got incoming, and not much of a chat at the end. So let's see. Let's start with my finished objects. First of all, I finished my purse of prosperity, of which I talked about last time. This is the purse. It's crochet color work, and I said last time that I would actually do this in the round, which I did, so you don't have any seaming here at the sides. As with the crochet color work using the waistcoat stitch, you see a little bit of yarns shining through, which I had to carry, but it doesn't bother me at all. I don't know, maybe it bothers you. It doesn't bother me. I changed the color work pattern so that it would fit a smaller bag, and then I intended to embroider the inside of a pomegranate, but instead I just did here the stitches, a line there and then lines here, and then I ran out of puff and I just added some wooden beads, which I got a while ago at Action. It cost me a whole box of beads, like 100 beads, wooden beads in colors, for €3 maybe. Very cheap, and it's the same on the other side. So yeah, this is a handle I still had from another bag, and I haven't lined it yet. I just put in some cardboard so that it doesn't collapse. This is my first finished object. The pattern for the crochet color work can be found on www.crochetme.com. Purse of Prosperity is available as a pattern on interweave crochet. I've used a 4mm hook for the Purse of Prosperity. My next finished object is a pair of mittens. I saw that Tina from Tina Hickel on Instagram, she had her birthday, and as every year on her birthday she gives a special discount. She turned 41, so congratulations, Tina. And she gives 41% off her patterns, all of her patterns. So I bought her pattern, even though she also uploaded a lovely tutorial on YouTube, so you can actually follow that, and you don't have to buy a pattern to be able to make your own crochet mittens. But I bought the pattern because I used thicker wool, I used a smaller sized hook, and I didn't follow the instructions for the top of the mittens because my hands are quite small and my fingers are short, so I had to finish early. But first let me show you. These are my Heckler mittens. I think I can talk about it because she did upload the tutorial for free on YouTube. I will link this down below as well. And they're really cozy and they fit very well, I must say. So you start off making the ribbing, and you have to see how many rows you have to make for your right size. That's the difference between the sizes she has in her pattern. And then you seam the ribbing together. You start making the first row of, I think it was single crochets, yes. And then you start with the mosaic color work. I've used 2 different wools. The first one was this wool here, which is Klaus Koch collection, mohair style, 150 meters per 50 gram. I got this at Junghanswolle on special, €1 something. And the other wool was, I don't have it in reach, but it was 6-ply meilenweit Sockenwolle, sock wool from Lana Grossa, which changes colors. So you see that it kind of worked out similar, but they're not exactly the same. I don't mind that. The main colors are still the same. And the ribbing, I've done that with I think that's an acrylic wool blend yarn in DK. You're not supposed to use DK yarn. Go and follow the pattern on YouTube or buy the pattern and yeah, make your own pair of Heckler mittens. I'm definitely going to have many more in my future. I would like to make a couple of Heckler mittens for the daughters of my cousin. And I think if I choose like a dark colors or gray colors or even blue and white, I could imagine making a pair for some male friends. We will see. Very cozy, very warm. And yeah, I made the pair in one day. Highly recommend the pattern. And with that, we're already at the works in progress. I had to get it. I had it over there on the table. So I talked about my other works in progress, which are older. I talked about them a couple of times and I haven't touched them at all. I am totally obsessed with my newest work in progress, and I talked about it last time that I saw this. It's the Frida shawl, a crochet design by Crochet, and let's be honest, Faye from the Crochet Circle podcast totally inspired me to finally start making this. I had seen it before, but I never went and bought the pattern to make it. So now that we have a Frida shawl make along, I'm actually joining that, and I think I've made quite a lot of progress. I'm using these 2 yarns. It's a shade of rose color and a gray color, and I realize, or I purposely chose these colors even though they don't have much contrast. I would like to have a version with less contrast than the original. These 2 yarns are 100% merino, and I bought this online. It's Filcolana Anina, 100% superwash merino wool. It's the yarn which the designer used for her version of the shawl. And I think she used this color as well. That's the gray one. It doesn't have a name, it just says color 978. And the... where is it? Oh, This, by the way, is the Häklermitten other yarn. I just found it. That's usually a sock wool. But back to the Frida shawl. No, that's not. There it is. The light pink one. That's the color 334. And I bought. She says you use 3 skeins of each color, but I bought 4 skeins just to be sure, because I'm a loose crocheter. My gauge is very loose, and I wasn't sure at first which colors to choose. I also had bought a dark blue one, color 145. I had thought about this kind of combination, which would be much more contrast. But in the end, as I said, I chose to go for a lighter version because this is going to be worn in spring. And this has like a maritime feeling to me. I would wear this kind of thing if I would live at the North Sea. I mean, it's nonsense. It's just in my head. You can wear it anytime and anywhere. But this is kind of my... I actually noticed later when I made my own design, the Jane shawl, in similar colors. And that was... I think it was drops wool, so you can use other colors, other wools as well. But for this I bought the recommended yarn, Filcolana. It wasn't that expensive. Actually, can't remember how much. Something between 4 and 5 euros per ball of yarn. Yeah, and let me show you how far I've come. It's I think I've made quite a lot of progress. For each row, you are using a new, you cut your yarn after each row, and then you get these tassels or these ends, which you, I mean, there are 2 different options for the border. There's like a faux I-cord border, but I will actually tie this together as in her video about what you can do with the ends. And I've also made a little different version with the mohair yarn I used for my Häklermittens, and another yarn which I will show you later. It looks like this. So you see this would be like a more contrast color version, but the mohair yarn doesn't lend itself to this shawl because it's like Velcro together with, I mean, it's very difficult to make the spike stitch for that area here, so nah, not going on with that one. But you can see that you tie the ends at the end to have a bit of small tassels, and you cut them. And oh, I wanted to show you this. If you are making the Frida shawl, then what I did with the length of the tassels, you see they're more or less the same length. I actually folded it like this first, and then I have a triangle here, and then I folded it in the middle again, so I have it again like this, and that I folded again, and then I have them all kind of lined up. So all I had to do was to hold it and snip it. You could also use you can also do it like she recommends it, using a bit of piece of cardboard, but yeah, for this little piece of trial and error, I just did the snipping free-handedly. Yeah, what else can I say about this? I actually love the yarn she used for the project. It gives a very lovely drape. It's soft. I don't expect to wash this a lot. So the super wash, I mean, it allows you to wash your shawl, but it also gives it, well, it would grow a lot in size if you use super wash and you wash it than in a garment, for instance. That's not such a good idea. You want a bit of non-super wash so that it doesn't completely lose its shape. I'm not so afraid of a shawl losing its shape, but yeah. And the shawl will grow still. I'm now at the... How many diamonds do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the shawl, if you continue to work on it to its extended side, to its planned, or how big it's supposed to be, when you have 7 triangles at the top. Yeah, so this is the Frida shawl. I'm sure that Faye will talk about this in her next episode as well, which comes out this Friday, I believe. I will work on this later today. I work on this whenever I can, because it's not very difficult. Maybe as a little tip, when you start your row, I think it's a matter of being lost in translation. The designer is Danish, EarthtonesGirl, she's Danish, and the pattern comes in Danish and in English. I don't know if she wrote it in any other language, but definitely in English and in Danish. And in English it says something which I didn't understand at first, but I worked it out with the help of her YouTube videos. And you start each row with a standing stitch, whatever the stitch is. I won't say here. I mean, just buy the pattern, it's not that expensive. But if it helps you to understand the pattern, then the first stitch is always a standing stitch. And also something else, if you are doing the spike stitch, you have to be careful to get through the V properly. And what helped me was my experience with the waistcoat stitch. When you are inserting your hook, I use the nose of the hook to pull the right leg of the V a little bit to the right, and that's already the position where you push through to yarn over and pull up the loop. So yeah, this is the front of the stitches. You see that you work these into the ones below, and the back of your shawl should look like this, so that it's all lined up properly and it isn't on the side of the V somehow. I find that this is much easier than if I pull the right leg of the V a bit to the right with the nose of the tip of my hook. Just as a little tip. Yes, so much about my Frida shawl. I'm not finished yet, but I see this being finished soon because I can't put it down, as I said. It's a wonderful pattern. The pattern asks for a 4.5mm hook, but again I'm using a 4mm hook because she seems to work quite tightly, and I'm such a loose crocheter, not morally, but from the stitches, that I always have to go down a hook size. Now my next work in progress concerns the movie and stitch project. I said to you that I would, or my original intent was to use the Purse of Prosperity for my movie and stitch project, which would be Persuasion, the movie adaptation of Jane Austen's novel Persuasion. I've changed my mind now because the design obviously looks more Edwardian than, or Victorian Edwardian kind of, yeah, it's not really Regency, is it? So I'm still looking up patterns, And I found a wonderful reticule, which is a little purse bag, very much loved by the ladies in Regency times. And I came across a couple of posts about a pineapple bag, and I wrote this down so that I don't get myself into trouble. This pineapple bag, and I put up a photo of it here. It's a small reticule in shape of a pineapple. It's knitted, but my work in progress is actually a pattern for a crochet version of this knitted bag. I don't know how long it will take me. Maybe it doesn't take much, but I first want to finish my Frida shawl, so this is next in line kind of thing. But yeah, I found a couple of photos of this pineapple bag. It seems to be quite small. It's knitted, and it's in the Kyoto Costume Institute in Japan. It dates from about 1800. And as background information, you know, I always get sidetracked. It's like a little squirrel. This would be also, or let's call this squirrel. Pineapple mania swept England from the mid-1700s. So the fruit pineapple became an object of demonstrating a social status. The fruit originally comes from South America, but people were taking it to their colonies, like the British colonies, French colonies, and they started growing it there. And once the fruits were grown, they imported them back to Europe. Most of them actually arrived in Europe rotten. So what they did was they built pine houses, like garden houses, like greenhouses in their gardens, especially for growing pineapples. And only the richest could afford gardeners experienced in growing pineapples. It's quite an art form to grow pineapple in European climate. And that started in the early or mid-1700s. And yeah, people paid a fortune to be able to offer their guests pineapple at their parties in numerous forms. I mean, by the 1770s, there was a phrase which was a pineapple of the finest flavor. And this phrase was used for just about anything that was the best of the best. Like probably also girls. I can imagine gentlemen saying, oh, that and so lady, she's the pineapple of the finest flavor. I just hope not so prickly as the real pineapple. Oh, there's a lorry outside. I hope that's not too distracting. I will just keep on talking about pineapples. So the pineapple as a status symbol was very much in fashion. It came into fashion in the 1700s, then it wasn't in fashion, then it came back into fashion during Regency times. And then you have this reticule little bag. There was a reconstruction by someone called Knitty-Vet, and yeah, I have found a knitting pattern. If you want to make yourself a pineapple purse in that style, knitting, then you can go to knitty.com, and I will link the pattern down below. Several people have already reconstructed a pineapple purse for the historical dressing, and as I said, I'm thinking about designing my own crochet version of a pineapple reticule bag. I will link this down below, and I will also link down below an article from the BBC about pineapples being in fashion, why, when, and everything about it. And then there's also a pineapple reticule bag on the website janeausten.co.uk. I will link that down below as well. It's probably the same pattern like on the nitty.com website. And on the janeausten.co.uk website, they link to a book called The Lady's Assistant for Executing Useful and Fancy Designs in Knitting, Netting and Crochet Work by Mrs. Jane Goodall, dated 1841. And I had a look at that. Not too much about crocheting in that book, which can be read. You know, Google Books, they only show you parts of a book. Maybe if you go somewhere, then you can find more about the crochet versions. But there are lots of knitting and also the knitting instructions for a pineapple reticule bag. Yeah, so watch this space for more pineapple bags. Back to the movie. As such, I have chosen Pride and Prejudice as my movie and stitch project, not so much Persuasion. Although you can take any Jane Austen movie or book. I mean, let's say Sanditon. In Sanditon, Lady Danbury actually has on her table a pineapple, and as a status symbol she offers that to her guests, and when they cut it open it's full of maggots. So it's also symbolical for the short-lived wealth and status of a rich person. Yeah, so any Jane Austen story will do, but let's talk about Pride and Prejudice. So much has been said about Pride and Prejudice already. What could I possibly add new to it? Not much. There's this channel who uploaded and put a lot of work into uploading videos about the comparison of the different adaptations of Pride and Prejudice on TV and in movies. So there's a version, I believe there's an Italian version, a Dutch version, there's the 1940 version with Sir Laurence Olivier, there's a 1980s version, actually a very interesting scene with Elizabeth wearing long stays, like proper Regency underwear. If you are a seamstress or interested in historical clothing, you might want to have a look at that. And then there's obviously the BBC 1995 version starring Jennifer Ely and Colin Firth, which is my favorite version. And then there is the 2005 version with Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadden. I love his portrayal of Darcy. Don't like her so much in movies. That's just my personal preference. But I don't even want to start debating about which version is the best. I just can tell you the 1995 BBC version is my favorite. Let me just shine a light on one of the most underestimated characters of the novel Pride and Prejudice, who is, of course, Mr. Collins. Yes, Mr. Collins. He is prepared to marry one of his cousins so that even though he would take away their inheritance, they would still benefit from the wealth, from his wealth. I mean, back then, women couldn't inherit anything. So if a man like Mr. Bennet only has daughters, how many? 5? He has 5 daughters. So once he dies, all his wealth goes to the next male relative, which is Mr. Collins. And yes, isn't it nice of him to want to marry one of the girls so that at least it stays in the family? I think so. And has he not shown great foresight by installing shelves in his closet?
Is it not the very essence of practicality and convenience? Lady Catherine Burke herself was kind enough to suggest that these shelves be fitted exactly as you see them there.
Shelves in the closet. Happy thought indeed.
He is not against taking advice from a woman, and he fully recognizes the superiority of his generous patron. Yes, isn't he a wonderful man? A most modern man, I'd say, and a most patient man. I think that Charlotte Lucas might have made the best catch of them all. Before I came here to talk about Pride and Prejudice, I watched the 1980s version, and I didn't have to rewatch all of the other two versions, the 1995 and the 2005 version. I've watched them so many times. I didn't have to rewatch that to remember my favorite scenes. But there is one scene in the 1980s version which I would like to show you, and it's the scene of Elizabeth visiting Pemberley for the first time, being awed by the grandeur of Pemberley and by being embarrassed by meeting unexpectedly Mr. Darcy, who is unexpectedly at home and not somewhere else. So she's found out. I compared the different takes on how they meet at Pemberley. In the 2005 version, you have she's in the house and she accidentally comes across a room where Mr. Darcy's sister is playing the piano, and she's kind of looking through the door, slightly open. She looks through that like a kind of spy, uninvited visitor, and then she's very much surprised when suddenly into her side angle, steps Mr. Darcy, who is actually also in the room with his sister, listening to her piano playing as well. She wasn't aware of her brother, but he just came back, and she's happy to see him, and they embrace each other. And Elizabeth kind of is surprised as well. She accidentally makes a sound, and she's caught by Mr. Darcy spying on them. How embarrassing. So this is the 2005 version. 1995 version, that plays in the garden, and Mr. Darcy, played by Colin Firth, first gets himself wet before embarrassing Elizabeth with his appearance. Yes, the sight of his manly chest makes her blush. I had a discussion about something completely else with my friend, and he says the most outrageous things, but he said to me that a man's chest is made for having women on them. That's ridiculous. That's also quite beside the point. So Mr. Andrew Davies, who was writing the screenplay for the BBC version, obviously fancied a bit of steamy engagement in the garden. Elizabeth is quite embarrassed by the scene, and we are all quite charmed by Mr. Darcy as well, and his wet shirt. So that's the 1995 version, and I will link down below, I think I said that before, I will link down below the little video of the making of video of a BBC version, and there's a little scene a bit about how they filmed the wet shirt, Mr. Darcy wet shirt scene. So that's quite interesting, I think. But the scene which I would like to show you is from the 1980s TV series, and it has Elizabeth being in the garden and Mr. Darcy coming around the corner, around one of the hedges, and they're both quite surprised, and quite frankly, in the 1980s version, Mr. Darcy is a very stiff and cold person. I can't warm up to him at all. But before Mr. Darcy comes around the corner, his dog first comes around the corner, and that scene just cracked me up so much. I mean, I will just show you. I can't unsee this. Dog comes around the corner. Elizabeth like, is the dog pooping on the lawn? Oh, Mr. Darcy. Hope he doesn't step on the poop.
Is Elizabeth Bennet?
Mr. Darcy?
Please let me know what your take is on that scene. And let me know what's your favorite version of Pride and Prejudice adaptations. Yeah, so lots of links down below. So much about Pride and Prejudice. I probably will talk about this again once I've finished my reticule pattern. Let's move on to incoming. I've actually bought 3 knitting patterns from the same designer, which is Ducati, a German designer. She writes patterns in English and German, and her name is Katharina Duden. And I bought her Hazel Socks pattern, which are made toe up with a magic loop technique on circular needles. I haven't printed any of them out yet. I don't have a printer, so I will see if I can kind of use my parents' printers or someone else. I don't know. I will see. Maybe I will use it on my computer only, or use Knit Companion. I don't know yet. But I can't show you in paper form. I can only show you a little glimpse of a first page. Yeah, I hope that's not like infringing on copyright. I'm not showing any of pattern bits as such. So the Hazel Socks, I wanted to buy them because they reminded me of the socks which I bought from, like handmade socks I bought from Fräulein Jansen, the ones with the yak wool in it, the green ones. I thought the Hazel Socks would be very similar to them, and I always make my socks toe up. It's just my preference. So my goal this year is to extend my sock making skills. That said, I want to show you my first ever pair of knitted socks again. I'm sure have I shown them first? This is Grundel socks, sock wool. Do I remember the name of them? They're color changing sock wool. Hot socks, Gründel hot socks, I think. So these are made also toe up with the magic cast on, Judy's magic cast on, and then you increase, you work on your sock. The heel is the crazy Streifenferse by, what's her name? I will put her name up here. She has a video on YouTube for that sock heel. It's in German, I believe. I'm not sure if she has that tutorial in English. Sylvie Rasch, that's her name. But I really enjoyed this sock because it's ideal for a high-end step. I would think that you find a similar sock at EarthtonesGirl YouTube channel. I know that she uploaded a nice heel pattern, like short row heel pattern. And I worked on a little bit of a cuff here, 2x2 rib, and a very elastic, stretchy bind off. Yeah, if I remember, I will put the links down below to the YouTube videos which I used back then, because I learned making socks by just watching YouTube videos. My first socks. I should wear these more often because they are actually fitting quite nicely. So anyway, socks. I bought the hazel sock pattern. And whilst I was in her shop, I also bought the Herzblatt beanie pattern, which is also crochet, which is also a colorwork or a stranded colorwork design. I put a photo up here. And I also bought her Be Creative Mittens pattern, which is a stranded colorwork pattern for mittens with like a bee colorwork design on them. And I just love these kind of stranded colorwork patterns. I wish that for crochet it would be possible to, I mean, it is possible. I know I made crochet colorwork before, but if I would make socks, I would have to use such a tiny hook size that I would really, I don't know if I would want to do that. So my aim is also to be able to make colorwork socks like these gorgeous ones. Yes, I'm aiming high. I bought another pair of socks from Fräulein Jansen. Maybe you've seen that on her Instagram. Whenever she finishes socks, and she seems to be able to make the perfect socks in no time at all. I mean, just look at the heel flap and gasket. I think she works her socks cuff down. Yes, definitely. But they are perfect. There are no holes at all at her heel, and they are so perfect. But the fit is also wonderful. I mean, it still fits me very well, even though I have quite fat ankles. They're always the perfect fit, and she says it's size 38-39, and it is size 38-39, so it's perfect. And I love color work. I love the colors. I love that difference between the pattern up here and on the sole. Everything about this is wonderful, and she always sends you a little crochet heart with that. So the idea is that if you ever work yourself a hole in your socks, then you have some leftover yarn to mend them. I think it's a lovely idea. So that's also incoming. I bought a pair of socks, and these were 20 or 21 euros. So, I mean, I would be crazy to buy wool. I am crazy to want to buy wool and try to make my own, because for that price, I mean, you can't beat that. Where do you get such artwork for 20 euros? That's crazy. And now I told you, and yeah, so I just made it difficult for myself that I can get the next good deal. Ah, dear. So yes, that's incoming. And of course I had the wool for my Frida shawl as incoming. And I've been at my local yarn shop, despite them not supporting crochet that much. I always get upset when they ask me, what wool do you need? What are you planning to make? And when I say I want to crochet, and they don't even let me finish what I want to crochet, they just like, crochet. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know anything about that. It always takes so much wool, blah, 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 blah. All the misconceptions about crochet are really high up on their list. And then, yeah, I mean, I think I just gave up. I didn't want to buy any more from them, but they actually have a good deal on the exact wool I needed, which is discontinued. So yeah, I wanted, let me show you a shawl which I made a while ago. This is a simple corner to corner shawl, C to C stitch, and I've used Lana Grossa Gomitolo Scandic wool. And I wanted to make like a palette cleanser project. I wanted to make another simple corner-to-corner shawl. I really like wearing this, but Lana Grossa Gomitolo Scandic is discontinued. Then I thought about Laine du Nord Poema, which is a lovely wool. I really enjoy that wool. It's even more softer than the Gomitolo Scandic. And I wanted to buy that. You can get, it's discontinued, but you can still get some at some yarn shops. So I knew that my local yarn shop had these. And I first looked up online if I could get the colors I wanted, but they only had ugly, I say ugly, but I mean leftover colorways. And then I decided to, when I went shopping with my sister, I persuaded her to make a stop at my local yarn shop on the way back, and then I bought this colorway, which I mean, it starts here in the middle of gray. I used a bit of a gray for that sampler. Where is it? For that sampler here, which I showed you before. I couldn't frock this anymore because of the mohair. So I have a little bit less than what's on this. This is 150 gram equals 600 meters. That's 656 yards. It's 100% Lana, so wool, and it's really nice wool. But yeah, Poema discontinued. But when I saw this color, I thought, yes, that's my color. I want to buy this. I chose this one, and I also bought this one, which is more subdued dark colors, but I think these are actually suiting me very well. I really love colorful projects, but for actual daily wear, I think that's a better choice. So my plan was corner to corner simple shawl. Maybe I will do that. I'm not sure. Maybe I will make something else with it. Yeah, it's made in Italy. Laine du Nord Poema luxury line. This is color 227, and this one is color, it says here 100. Yeah, color 100, color 227. And I originally had in my hands another color, like one of these color changing Laine du Nord balls. That was light gray into like an amethyst bluish turquoisey color. Not turquoise, more like a lavender color, light gray to lavender, let's say like this. But it was really, I mean, it made me look paler than I already am. So instead I came across another Laine du Nord Poema ball of yarn, but this one is alpaca, Poema alpaca, and it's in color 1. And it's with alpaca, as it says. And I love the colors. You can't even see. I mean, it looks quite dark from the outside. And I saw a sample, a knitted sample. It's quite, it's lots of alpaca on one tiny middle for strengthen, I suppose. So the outside is dark. and then it turns into a kind of lovely, I mean, these are my colors as well, and then it ends in a nice kind of apricot salmon color. Yeah, so this is Laine du Nord Poema Alpaca, and I might just knit another tube shawl. I don't know, or maybe, do you have like a simple shawl, a simple knitted shawl, I should say that. Yeah, or maybe I just use a very, you know what? I think I'm going to use a very big hook size, and I will make a corner to corner shawl with that, but with a very big hook size. The thing is, do you think I should start with a bright color for the tip of the V, for the corner down here, becoming bigger and bigger and bigger? Or should I start with the darker color so that the light color ends up being closer to my face? I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? This will be very warm. And it doesn't have these flyaway fibers like alpaca usually has. Not too much, I think. We will see how it works up. It's definitely, I mean, anything with fluff has a bit of a Velcro or Velcro quality to it. Just like this mohair thing. It's also quite a nice combination. Maybe I should start with this color. No, it's not working up, is it? I don't know. You tell me. Tell me down below. You know what? I don't feel like chatting with everything that's going on in the world right now. I had thought about if I should record another episode or not, but I decided that I hope you know what, I just hope that I was able to give you a little bit of time out, a bit of time, a bit of escapism. Yes, and I hope that that you will be safe, that you stay safe as much as it's in your own power, and I hope I will be able to talk to you soon. I will go for a walk right now. I will go outside, I will enjoy the nature. We have blue sky, the sun is shining, the animals don't know anything about war. Neither do plants, flowers, crocuses are coming out. I'm struggling. You see that I'm struggling to say anything about this, so I won't. Keep safe, keep strong, and I hope to see you soon again. Bye! Das passt ja hervorragend. Ich habe nämlich heute über Ananas gesprochen.